Hello and welcome to The Information, where you'll get all the information on the latest in indie, electronic, and experimental music. Today we have an album review. We're reviewing the new Vinyl Williams record, Opal. Vinyl Williams, for those unfamiliar, he is a psychedelic and rock outfit out of Los Angeles, California. He is the grandson of John Williams as well, the famous composer who has done scores for films such as Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, and Star Wars, just to name a few. So music definitely runs in his family, to say the least. This album of his I'm reviewing today, Opal, is his fourth full-length record. He's been making music since about 2010. Up until this point, Vinyl Williams has just gotten better with each release, in my opinion. He dabbled in lo-fi krautrock on his 2012 album Lemniscate. He followed that album up with Into in 2015, which was a more hi-fi and loungy sort of spacey psychedelic adventure. And barely a year after that, he released Brunei, which I believe to be his best record as of yet. As you can tell by the shirt, I'm not at all biased. And the wait was just a little under 2 years for his newest output here, Opal. The production quality is largely the same. The drums are very punchy. There's a very vintage sort of tape kind of sound to everything. And I'll also probably be using the word atmospheres a lot in this review, as that is something that Vinyl Williams is very good at. His talents for catchy melodies, psychedelic pop passages, and interesting vocal hooks are fully on display here. The intro track here, Sanctuary Spells, creates a nice build-up. There's some fuzzy vinyl crackles, some old-timey detuned piano, and some sci-fi laser effects at the beginning. Suddenly, with a chime, the song kind of bursts in at about 40 seconds, and you get this flurry of ride cymbals and this really busy drum pattern. A dual hit of what sound like electric piano and guitar wash over the listener, and we're soon treated to some traditionally reverbed vocals, as is Vinyl Williams' style. The bass chugs along and there are drum fills aplenty. It's interesting how it juxtaposes the intense energy of the drums and the more relaxed and serene atmosphere in the background. Track number 2, Noumena, is an impressive mid-tempo tune. It opens with some steady toms and some tambourine hits as well. There's some very psychedelic lyrics and a almost surf rock inspired chorus, which is very cool. You get lots of jangly guitars during the chorus, and the lyrics during this section especially are surprisingly clear for Vinyl Williams. Normally his vocals are a little bit distorted, a little bit pushed down in the mix a little bit to kind of just create more of an extra element and extra texture in the song, but you can actually hear what he's singing this time around, which is a nice change of pace. There's a searing guitar solo and some instrumental jamminess in the midsection of the song, which provides a nice instrumental break from the chorus into the next verse. If I had to nitpick, I would say that this song, along with a couple others sort of in the front half of the album, there's usually one element that's maybe mixed a little bit too high to enjoy at anything higher than a traditionally listenable volume. In this song in particular, there's a little bit of guitar towards the end that kind of seems mixed a little too loudly. But other than that, this is a pretty solid song and a great single from the record. I like the next song, Spirit of Now, as well too. This is definitely one of the more lo-fi and psychedelic moments on the record. Something that reminds me a lot of early Bibio or even early Black Moth Super Rainbow to an extent. It's one of the shorter psych rock tunes on the record, but I love the transitions between sections and tempos on this song. The last 30 seconds are what impressed me most about it. It kind of picks up the tempo a little bit, gives it a nice kick in the pants, so to speak, ends the song off on a high note. There's a hazy synth pad that gets introduced here, and the melodies are more intriguing and more affecting. I do wish this section would have gone on for a little bit longer, but I'll take it. The strong first half of the album continues with the next and lead single, Lansing. To me, this is unquestionably the best song on the album. I can definitely see why it was used as a single for the record. The verses vocally are very airy and open. There's a lot of room for the vocals to breathe, and I also like the organ hits that interject. The vocal melodies here are also the catchiest on the record, almost by default, just because of, again, how crisp and clear they are. You can actually hear what he's singing, so it's easy to sing along. I also like the production decision to let the instrumental bed of the chorus kind of play out first, like you get introduced to it as an instrumental before Vinyl Williams jumps on and sings the chorus. The next track, Aphelion, is one of the heavy hitters on the record. There is an irritatingly familiar lead melody in the intro here that to this day, almost like 2-3 months after this album's been out, I still cannot place where I know that melody from. is driving me crazy. Things kick off again much like the intro track with a rush of snares and busy drum patterns here. This is also the most melodically diverse song, much like Spirit of Now. This kind of capitalizes on a lot of tempo changes, a lot of instrumental changes, and a lot of time signature changes as well. I love not only the transition at the 52-second mark from the first fast-paced section into the first slow-paced section, that spa-like kind of just slow jam, and you can just really like wrap yourself around it. After a little bit, he does kind of let the tempo speed up somewhat before he reaches back into the original melody, and then he just sort of repeats this process throughout the 6-minute runtime. When he dives back into the slower section, he does change things up a little bit, which is unexpected and nice. That slower section around 2:35 in the track is equally serene, but he adds some deft guitar work here as well. I will say though that the song proper ends at about the 3-minute 50-second mark. The last 2 minutes or so are pretty much just like an extended ambient soundscape. There are lots of like goat hoof shakers and what sound like a mandolin or some other plucked instrument that kind of take over the rest of the runtime. Up next is another strong offering from the record, Florian Veridiction. There are some very fantastically creative and dreamy melodies here. To me, this song hits the sweet spot between experimentation and catchiness. There's a very lounge piano-inspired chord progression here that's very fun. It's like a doot 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 doot. And those last little piano stabs are accentuated by some cool syncopated drums. And we get some very trippy lyrics here again as well. He has a passage where he sings, "Opal eyes of our deep disguise, you thought about your soul before you lived up in the sky. In a floating house that moves around, you sat upon the clouds." For lack of a better term, this song is probably the most quintessential trip song on the record. On the track Nether Congrenes, we get pretty much what I would say is the first kind of real dud track of the record. It definitely is far from my favorite. There are some elements towards the end especially that kind of rub me the wrong way. The vibe and energy in general reminds me of something off the latest Unknown Mortal Orchestra record, Sex and Food, which I reviewed earlier. There's a flute melody that just kind of toots away, and it's very annoying as well. And for me, the tempo is too fast and jittery to truly enjoy. Occasionally there's also some vocal interjections with some pitched down, I would think Ariel Pink inspired, like, "Trust us, no don't." And it really throws you through a loop, especially when you're not expecting it the first time you listen to it. The track None with Other is fairly straightforward. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. There are some energetic drums that start the song off before launching into a sugary chord progression. The bass line is chunky and the guitars are playful and fun enough. There are some playing around with some time signatures once again, and some cool drum syncopation to go along with that. The next track here, Eternity, reminds me somewhat of King Cruel, if I had to put an influence on it. It's a slowed down, kind of Dumb Surfer-esque vibe that I get from this track. It's very down-tempo, very bluesy, very sort of moody, and a little bit aquatic in sound. I do like the vocal layering that happens from about the 2-minute mark on. The final track here, Millennial Ballroom, has some more Bibio-inspired lo-fi, spindly guitar passages. The instrumentation is typically lush. I like the impressive chord progressions, and the vocal melodies are somewhat memorable as well. The cool thing about this piano is that when it gets introduced, I realized that it was the same piano sound that was at the intro track to the album Sanctuary Spells. So once this track fades out, you realize that it kind of loops into the first track perfectly, creating a circular listening experience, which I thought was pretty rad. Overall, I would definitely say that Opal is another great album to add to the Vinyl Williams catalog. Is it my favorite of his? I would say it's not. I think Brunei here still stands alone at the top, but it's definitely another great offering, like I said. The album is colorful, vibrant, very sonically lush, and there are definitely some great high points on songs like Lansing and Florian Veridiction, and I do also enjoy the playing around with time signatures and the typically enveloping atmospheres. However, there are still some detractors, of course. I think, simply put, just some of the songs don't measure up to some of the other high points on the record here. And also, some of the choruses just aren't catchy enough, and the melodic moments, to me, in some of the tracks, especially on the back half, aren't quite as engaging. That being said, again, I would still definitely recommend you check out this record. Maybe check out Brunei or even Into if you kind of want to start with Vinyl Williams' discography and kind of just go up from there. But overall, I would give this one probably a light 7, I think would be good. But let me know what you guys thought of this record. Have you enjoyed it? Do you have a least or favorite track? Was I on the mark, or did I miss the mark in my comments? Let me know. You can leave a like, comment, and subscribe as always. And thank you again for watching The Information.